My goal in this note is to discuss the capitulation of the Fourth Estate. You may um, know what a neologism is, but it's a new word that's considered to be fitting because its etymology or its roots are self-explanatory. For example, we know that Prescott Bush was prosecuted under Trading with the Enemies Act. It's a proclivity of the Bush um, clan to chummy up with people they say were at odds with in secret. Prescott is a neologism. You might have heard the expression, who watches the watchman? So, who catches the press, in other words. Um, the city of Pittsburgh ran a for profit child slave trafficking education shack with the full knowledge of administration all the way up to the level of the President of the United States. Certainly, the University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon have put on quite a show with the script of the Texas school book. And it wasn't free public education, it wasn't voluntary, it was moonshine genocide pornography. Despite this, I really must say I admire Tacoma, where I now live. We're voting, we're assembling the people, we're keeping on, as Sandy Lou used to say. So, when I was growing up, I went to the house of Michael Todd, who was an aristocrat. His father worked with Governor Shap. And I had no special uh, interest in greed. I assessed people. He seemed like a nice man at the time. He was my friend until he battered me senseless on his front porch in full view of his mother when I questioned whether there was really a 200-pound coin made of gold with the Declaration of Independence printed on it. And I know that across the street, Beth Blumenfeld had an interest in me until her Jewish friends jumped on her for my being a goy. She had a safe in her house, a huge full wall safe. Um, these are the people who gave John Schulman access to the Carnegie, which put him on the cover of Smithsonian for ripping them off for $8 million with the help of a friend of a speechwriter of Trumpy. So Prescott is a neologism. And people say it applies to me. I'll tell you what the oligarchs are afraid of, and their friends in the Fourth Estate who sacrificed the newspaper business for this new age she Goebbels of Tosi Goldberg, you know, Wagner, St. Louis Post-Dispatch militia chaos scene that's ruining our civics. I'll tell you what they're afraid of. What they're afraid of is the British neurohypnosis lobotomy cloister's success in convincing people that the people who were behind the AIDS attack, yes, AIDS was an attack, were top sacredly friends of the victims, advocating for the victims, in divine operation of transvestite militias marching against the Muslims, enslaving the women by their brainwashing of gender, and so on. In other words, Diamond DeGaulle is standing outside 911 with Cliff Robertson circling the World Trade Center. She's standing outside with a stiletto. And then the day it happened, he was above in a private plane. His history is telltale. He was on The Outer Limits, which was postponed for Candy's state funeral. He played Candy in PT 109. And they're taking personas, they're poachers. They so agree that the individual isn't important that they're using it for Hollywood. Francis Ford Coppola will poach the Kennedy Enigma and allow the Catholic worker Martin Sheen to appropriate it for sublime continuity, and so on and so forth. Because individuals must be raised from their pollution of our uh, political index or something. I don't know how they think. It's bizarre. But when you believe that the celebrity totemic honchos, bow and worship before them, represent the inner sanctum of their fans, the Swami gurus, then it bypasses and hot wires around the actual connivance of the arrangements for what they claim is an arc. Now, the justification for this is getting a hold of population control, that human behavior left them no choice, and that they were press carding a demonstration project with Robert Fripp's sublime guru Gertie of real world's Hollywood projection Gatling gun theorem. But I went to this public school, and I know that they did not really try. The business, they were like, oh, you've all day to try to teach them. But in the end, it's the missile that counts. You know, the truth is that they tax and tax and spend and spend. Warriors are deranged by their maniacal abandonment of public trust. Now, you should not be able to profit. Public service should be its own duty. But the bottom line is that if you're not mature enough to take responsibility for the civics enterprises of public schools, for example, then you shouldn't be allowed in politics. You should be voted out. And they claim that there's an underclass lobby who won in at the expense of the hard earned riches of the oligarchy. And they've computated an alliance between the left and right that say scarcity, what matters is the survival and ultimate reconciliation of our two lines of grievance. So we will work together on this arc in secret. And that's where the um, fourth estate closed. They want people to believe in the Seattle queerdom that the domestic terrorists who have created a chop shop out of Seattle, it's a nightmare. I mean, they're using the schools to traffic children. Um, in the name of this or that bluster, don't criticize gays, don't talk back to the Negro, this sort of thing. Poison criminals. I mean, nightmare weasels, true nightmare weasels. And of course, it's all backed up by Bernie Sanders, oh, hands off. But what they don't want you to understand is that Diamondagos was in Satanism and immunogenetics in the 70s. Her namesake called me to announce Lenin's Houdini, and they say that didn't happen because Lenin didn't create a Houdini. That's all a misunderstanding. Everybody loves Elton John. That the romantic idea of public service of the newspaper closed on that issue. Closed. They surrendered. And the people in newspaper business shouldn't be treated as anything like um, Nazi spas.